Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another episode of This Week in Master Duel. This is going to be our weekly news segment in which we cover all of the most recent happenings that have been going on in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel game. We are, as always, as ever, going to start in clients. We actually have a lot to look at today, as well as a ban list to talk about, because we haven't talked about this yet on the channel. After that, we'll go ahead and look at Untapped for some ranked ladder data, and then we'll also look at some tournament results as well. So let's go ahead and start off in the notifications here. So quite a few things that have been updated since we last talked, most notably of which I believe is going to be the latest Forbidden Limited List update. So as you can see, we only have 3 cards to talk about. So the discussion here, normally I like to dedicate ban list talk to its own video, but again, with only 3 cards, there's not that much to say. So I'll go ahead and talk about the list here, give my opinions on it. Let's start with the cards to be limited. As always, because these are in blue, that means they are going from more copies to less copies. Cards to be limited: Super Heavy Samurai Soul Piercer, going from semi-limited to 2 down to limited to 1 copy per deck. I think this is a fantastic change that should have just been enacted in the first place. I don't know why we messed around with Soul Piercer to 2 when clearly a card that can search without any kind of once per turn restriction definitely needs to just be at 1. So Super Heavy Samurai before the ban list change was, I would say, a pretty solid like mid tier 2 deck. But I think after this limit, it will definitely go down in power level. Not too far. I think post Soul Piercer limit, we can expect to see Super Heavy Samurai at upper tier 3 would be my guess. You will definitely see the number of people playing this deck drop pretty dramatically, but as always, ever, I don't think that necessarily correlates to a deck's power level. Representation and power level are always 2 different things. Some people think, oh, nobody's playing this deck, so it must be terrible. But no, sometimes it is just possible that people just don't play a deck en masse, right? Especially after a recent ban list change in which the deck got hit. So, again, I would expect a lot of people to be dropping Super Heavy Samurai after Soul Piercer goes to 1, but I do not think that means the deck is dead. I don't even think it means it's rogue. Again, I think it'll end up being probably an upper to mid tier 3 deck if I had to guess. Now, let's talk about the semi-limits here. So these are cards that were at 3 going down to 2 copies apiece. And they're 2 big ones: Snake Eye Ash and Wanted, Seeker of Sinful Spoils. So these are kind of like the kind of controversial hits, right, in a lot of ways, because while a lot of people did want Snake Eye as a deck to get hit, I think a lot of people were definitely disappointed that only 2 of the cards got semi-limited. I will say that I do think Snake Eye needed to be reined in a little bit more, and I can understand for that reason why people are upset with these semi-limits. I probably would have limited Snake Eye Ash as well as semi-limiting the Wanted, right? That's what I personally probably would have done. I think that's also what they did in the OCG as well. I think Snake Eye is definitely still tier 1 for sure. It's probably still the best deck. Rescue Ace might end up edging over just a little bit. But I do want to say, because a lot of people, it comes up all the time when Master Duel does its semi-limit hits, and of course, being the top tier 1 deck, people were very upset when 2 of their cards only got semi'd, saying that this change does nothing. That I will wholeheartedly disagree with. I understand wanting more to have been done, and I do think that more should have been done. But to say that cards getting semi-limited in a best-of-1 format is just absolutely untrue. And this is, I think, something that, people need to separate Master Duel and, in general, best-of-1 formats from best-of-3. I think a lot of people, when they evaluate the ban list, and also just Master Duel as a whole, they do so with a best-of-3 mindset. And it's true that in a best-of-3 format, right, in matches, semi-limiting cards really has, fairly minimal impact. It does hurt the deck's consistency, but consistency doesn't matter as much in best of 3, especially in games 2 and 3, where oftentimes your side deck cards can end up mattering a lot more than your actual engine cards, right? However, for best of 1, this is different. As I've said over and over and over and over again on the channel, and even dedicated an entire video to, in best of one, you have to deck build differently mostly because consistency matters more, right? When you don't have to win every single game, just the majority of the games, then you want to be seeing your engine and hand traps both equally as much as possible. Again, just keeping your deck as consistent as possible. So these kind of semi-limits, while again, they won't knock Snake Eye from tier 1 down at all, in my opinion, you will definitely feel the changes, right? You will definitely break just enough more often. You will definitely notice yourself not having an extender when you get disrupted just enough more often that it will end up mattering. Now, again, for this list, for these hits, I think they should have done a little bit more. But I remember, like, I'm thinking back to when Alibur got semi-limited, right? And people were like, oh, what is this? This does nothing. I thought Alibur 2 was actually a great example of a good semi-limit in Master Duel, right? Because Brandon did not need to have Alibur limited, or banned, definitely not, of course, but, you know, when everything was at 3, the deck's consistency and the rate at which it was able to put out its plays definitely needed to be reined in just a little bit. This is another fallacy I notice a lot of people have with the ban list. They think, oh, if something's going to get hit on the ban list, it should be nuked. There are people who unironically think that archetypes should be unplayable post-ban list. That's horrible game design. That is absolutely atrocious game design. With ban list, you should want to hit as little as possible to keep an archetype in check, but still have it be, you know, playable or valid for a person who wants to play the deck, right? So, you know, there are people out there who will unironically go, Snake Eye Ash to 0, Wanted to 0, Diabell to 0, Flamberge to 0. And it's like, no, those are bad hits. So, you know, I think it comes down to the fact that, like, a ban list doesn't have to completely curb a deck to be effective. And especially in Master Duel, in that regard, semi-limits can often be very effective. Now, again, here in this case, they should have done more. I do agree with that, but this is not a nothing hit. And I think to pretend that it is very disingenuous and just very honestly poor meta evaluation. So that's my thoughts on the ban list here. Again, Soul Piercer to 1, good, great, awesome hit, should have just been done in the first place. Ironically, that is a semi-limit that I did kind of disagree with, was them putting Soul Piercer to 2. It's like, just put it to 1. We all know it needs to go there. Snake Eye Ash to 2, I think it should have gone to 1. Wanted to 2, I think is fine. I think, honestly, with Ash at 1 and Wanted at 2, it's probably all that needed to be hit. I mean, there is also... I've shared my piece on both Twitter and stream about how I feel about the Boar Load and Baron bans and TCG. If you haven't seen either of those, I think they're atrocious, terrible hits. And after those hits, I think that Master Duel, even with Max C legal, far and away has the superior ban list. I think the TCG list is shit, it's trash, it's garbage. I have no idea why anybody likes it, except for Max C being banned. But again, I don't even think that's enough of a reason anymore to call it a good list. The TCG list is just terrible. But... what was my original point again? Oh yeah, no. I would definitely not have mind seeing Link Kuriboh getting banned necessarily. I do think that hit on the TCG list was fine. I could see a world where Promethean Princess gets banned. I think that card is just far too generic for what it does. Should require at least one fire monster to be able to make it, but it doesn't. So that's kind of where I'm at, I think, with the state of Snake Eye on the ban list. Also, sorry if you hear weird noises in the background. They are continuing to do construction literally directly outside of my window. Okay, so we have other things that have updated in the Master Duel client as well. The proficiency test! Yay! Is anyone excited for this? Is anyone... I mean, this is a cool icon. The mate base, I guess, is kind of... Didn't we already have this mate base? That's weird. Anyway, I thought this was already available in the shop. Hang on, I'm actually going to look. Because I'm very sure that mate base is already available in the shop. But I could be wrong. It's like a... Here, it's part of a dual field, right? Mate's base. Yeah, we did already have a nest. What the I mean, it doesn't look exactly the same, but it's like close enough. Come on, what kind of a reward is that? I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of the proficiency tests. I guess we'll do them eventually, but there is that as well if you want some more accessories there. Speaking of accessories, we do have some limited time ones. Ooh, and in fact, I think they look quite nice. I think I'll be picking these up myself. We have some cherry blossom, just cherry blossom accessories in general. The frame, the ash blossom icon, and the flower cardigan sleeve. I think, again, these all look very nice. I will definitely be picking these up for sure. We also got a couple of new secret packs with the recent updates, so this was pretty cool and unexpected. We have Fluanderies getting their own secret pack, combining with Simorg. I think this is a really good secret pack if you're getting into this deck, because all this stuff is good for Fluanderies, obviously, and then Simorg is definitely good for a various amount of Wing Beast decks, such as Tri-Brigade Lyrilusk, which is another one of those decks that, like, people just kind of don't play anymore, so people just kind of assume it's bad, but you'll definitely see Tri-Brigade Lyrilusk still topping the occasional tournament, even within, like, the last couple of months, or I'm pretty sure even within the last month period, so definitely don't sleep on decks like this. And yeah, I mean, as far as like picking up competitive stuff, yeah, you got a couple of pretty good things you can get here. We also have a Yuumi pack, so that's going to come with the Yuumi support, like the Kairyu Shin and the Mega Fortress Rail. Looks like it's got Zeolatus as well as some of the Shark cards as well. Shark as in both the character and I guess the archetype. It's like kind of an archetype. It kind of goes with the over 100 numbers as well, so yeah, that's pretty cool that we have all these, you know, it's always nice to get new secret packs, and I actually didn't even think about the fact that Fluanderies, like, still did not have a secret pack. That's actually pretty wild that they're only just now getting one, but yeah, cool stuff. All right, so that is going to be it for our in-client update. So, actually, there is one other thing, as you can see here, I do want to talk about real quick. So, from what I have heard people saying, many different people saying, and I can neither confirm nor deny this, there have been rumors that we might possibly be getting SP Little Knight at some point in the very near future. But again, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I don't know for sure if this is going to happen. I've just seen a lot of different people in a lot of different online spaces saying that this is a decent possibility. And this is huge, by the way. SP Little Knight is a Link 2 monster that is about as ubiquitous as IP Masquerena as far as how many decks play it. Probably even more decks play SP Little Knight, honestly. And indeed, it actually does pair very well with IP Masquerena. If you are a Master Duel only player, you've probably still heard about this card somewhere through the grapevine, and it does seem like there might be, according to some people that aren't me, a chance that this might end up happening sometime soon. So SP Little Knight is a Dark Warrior Link 2 with 1600 attack. Material requirements are only 2 effect monsters, so very, very easy to make. If this card is Link summoned using a Fusion Synchro Xyz or Link monster as material, you can target 1 card on the field or in either graveyard, banish it. Also, your monsters cannot attack directly this turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can target 2 face-up monsters on the field, including a monster you control. Banish both until the end phase. You can only use each effect of SP Little Knight once per turn. So it's pretty easy to see why this card is so good, it's particularly with the IP Masquerena as well. This is not just 1, but 2 forms of disruption. Again, especially if you use IP to go into this, right? During your opponent's turn, you can banish a card from either their field or graveyard when you Link summon this, and then also as a quick effect, you can blink 2 monsters, blink as in banish them until the end of the turn. 1 on each side of the field. It doesn't even necessarily need to be Little Knight herself. If there's another monster that you would rather have banished on your field for whatever reason, you can banish something else. So, yeah, this card is very, very infamous in both the TCG and OCG. It's everywhere. It's played, again, in pretty much every single extra deck. A lot are even playing 2 copies. So, definitely expect to see this card a lot moving forward. One thing that people have said is that this card might be the reason that Sprite Elf ends up finally getting banned. I don't know. This is coming from someone who's never played with SP Little Knight, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. I kind of don't see why Elf would make this any more ridiculous than, like, IP would. I don't know. I've tried asking people who are, like, you know, more familiar with it, and from what I can tell, the main broken thing about that is that Little Knight is often outed by being battled over, and then Elf could bring it back, in theory, which, I mean, I don't know. I think that's, like, probably fine. It doesn't sound particularly egregious, like, but again, this is coming from somebody who's not played with Little Knight before. Although, to be fair, nobody has played with both Elf and Little Knight legal, as by the time SP Little Knight came out, in both TCG and OCG, Elf was banned in each respective format. Also, between you and me, like, let's be real, Little Knight is the more broken card between the two, not Sprite Elf, but, you know, to each their own, I suppose. I guess we'll end up seeing what happens with that. But again, we could possibly see this card at some point in the near future, according to some people who aren't me, so I just want to get that on everyone's radar there. Let's pop on over to Untapped now and look at some ranked ladder stats. As always, we're looking only at Diamond and Master Rank, just to see what's going on in the upper ranks where, you know, gameplay is a little bit more refined and deck choices and all that stuff. And we're seeing Snake Eye continue to plummet, only 19.8%. And in fact, we have another deck, Rescue Ace, very quickly catching up with a popularity rating of 14.9%. In spite of that, Snake Eye does have a noticeably higher win rate, actually exactly 3% higher. And this tracks for me. I think that Snake Eye and Rescue Ace are fairly comparable in terms of power level. But Rescue Ace is notably weaker going second. In fact, when you drop down the stats here, you can actually look at a deck's win rate going first or second. Rescue Ace has 65.6% win rate going first. Very impressive. 41.6 though, obviously not as much. If we look at Snake Eye on the other hand, yeah, we see a pretty similar win rate going first of 65%, but a much higher, almost 8% higher going second win rate. And that's for, you know, a couple of different factors. The main one being that Snake Eye can afford to play a lot more hand traps than Rescue Ace. I think Rescue Ace's biggest weakness is deck space. You have so much engine that you want to put in Rescue Ace, especially if you're playing a full Snake Eye package in Rescue Ace, that it can be hard to have room for hand traps and not end up going like well over 50 cards. Now, you can play a Rescue Ace deck that's well over 50 cards and still do well with it. But your consistency will suffer a bit for that, and as we've discussed, consistency in best of one ends up mattering more than anything else, in my opinion. So, we have Pearly up here as well. See, this is the thing that that I've seen people say too, that like, oh, you know, these new packs that came out to give other archetype support didn't knock down Snake Eye from being the best deck. No, it didn't, but to say that that means they had no effect is definitely not true at all. Both Pearly and Rescue Ace were definitely not anywhere near close to the top of the tier list, you know, before they got their new wave of support. But not only did Rescue Ace get the most noticeable boost, but look at Pearly. You know, Pearly is definitely up there. It's not up there in popularity rating, but in terms of win rate, it is absolutely up there. And I've definitely seen Pearly a lot in Upper Ladder and in the Challenger Cups, especially the last few. I saw a lot of Pearly in Swiss in the last few Challenger Cups. So it's a very good deck. Don't sleep on it. You know, I said that like, oh, Pearly's probably tier 3, maybe lower tier 2, right when the new support first came out. But I'm going to say I was wrong about that. I'm willing to say I was dead wrong in that assertion. I think Pearly is a very solid tier 2 deck, probably mid tier 2 deck. But I don't think it's tier 3. I think it's a very good deck. We have some usual suspects up here, like Vanquish Soul is always pretty close to the top, being able to play very well into a lot of hand traps that are very prevalent, especially in this meta, where there's a lot more hand traps going around. Super Heavy Samurai still up here. Again, I expect definitely the popularity and probably the win rate as well to fall once Soul Piercer gets limited, but in the meantime, definitely still a very good deck. And then a lot of the more usual suspects, right, like Mathback, Interior Limit, and Branded Despia, Lab Cash, Unchained, Sword Soul, all that fun stuff. Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of the things are where we'd expect to see them, but I think for me, one of the biggest surprises for me is the popularity of both Snake Eye plummeting and Rescue Ace soaring. But you could also attribute this to, like, you know, new meta deck comes out, people who are playing the old one go flock to try it. There is definitely a lot of that going on too. So, but I do think Rescue Ace is up there with Snake Eye as like the other tier 1 deck of the meta, but I do think that between the two, Snake Eye does end up prevailing as the stronger deck overall. Again, when you just look at the win rates for going first and going second, it just it's pretty apparent. So I mean, even if you look at other decks too, right? Okay, maybe not Super Heavy Samurai, but well, you know what? Okay, Vanquish Soul has a pretty high going second win rate. I imagine Pearly does too. Actually, if you look, that's kind of what all three of the top win rate decks have in common, is that they have a notable higher going second win rate than a lot of these other decks down here, right? Mathback, I imagine, yeah, is a little bit better than where Rescue Ace is at, but... So I think, again, being able to play a lot of hand traps and have that strength going second does end up being very important in this particular metagame. Okay, let's go over to Master Duel Meta now. That's not Master Duel Meta. Here it is. we're going to look at some tournament results. So we'll start with the China Master Duel Taiba Weekly, number 78. This was 135 players, 6 rounds best of 1 into best of 3 top 6. So that does actually end up being the same format as the Challenger Cup. So I usually pay special attention to tournaments with this format when I'm looking at the top, cut lists, because those are the kinds of tournaments that I usually play in, right? And something we've been seeing a lot since Rescue Ace has come out is that the number of Snake Eye decks topping, it's no longer eating most of the pie chart, right? So again, if Snake Eye was ever tier 0 in Master Duel, it was like barely so for like maybe 2 weeks. Again, Snake Eye, very strong deck. Is it tier 0? No, it's fine. Well, it's tier 0. It's not tier 0, rather. And it was Pearly that ended up taking the W here. Again, Pearly, don't sleep on this deck. It's a very, very good deck. Don't sleep on it. But anyway, this deck rocking the Cashier package. Oh, wasn't this the tournament where the second place was also Pearly? Yeah, with the Adventure package. I think these are both really, really cool concepts. I like the idea of blending Pearly with another little engine to give it a little bit of a boost there. And I really like the idea of blending it with Adventure. It makes sense too. Well, I will say that I just really like Adventure as an archetype, but it makes sense because you often don't really need your normal summon for Pearly. You can just turbo out your Pearlily with your, quick play spells, and then you'll have the Griffin Rider to help insulate that play and make sure you don't get disrupted going into your X-Pearly Noir. So I think that's a really, really cool build here. Of course, I think the Cashier package is also very nice for not only baiting disruption, but also just helping you play through it if they choose not to use it against those and use it against your Pearly stuff anyway, right? So very, very cool. Very, very cool to see. Love these lists up here. We got a Cashier Snake Eye list coming in 3rd place using an all-link package. On top of that, we have Dragon Link. After thousands of years of laying dormant, we see Dragon Link once again being supported, looks like, by the Snake Eye package as well. Dragon Link, another one of those decks that people stopped playing, but that didn't mean it stopped being good. It just means you need to try a little bit harder. But yeah, having a level 1 fire monster also, that helps too. Teller Knights, another one of those decks that, like, people say, I think about this a lot too when people say, like, oh, in a Snake Eye meta, you can never do well with an off-meta deck. It's like, hello, we have Teller Knights right here. Also from the Challenger Cups, good friend of the channel, Oni Girly, got top 16 in the latest Challenger Cup with Dreaming Nimlaria. I always think about Oni playing Dreaming Nimlaria and getting to Master 1 and topping tournaments with it. Whenever I see people say, I can't play my off-meta deck, it's like, you can. It might be harder, it might be more difficult to top, but it is definitely still possible. And, I don't know, I've always been a believer that, like, mentality precedes success, right? Like, yeah, if you have the attitude of, like, I always get luck sacked, my off-meta deck can't do well, like, go figure you're not going to improve as a duelist. Shocking, I know, but here we have Mikonko. This looks like a pretty standard build here. I was going to say, I wonder if it's going second build, but they are on the summoner limit, so summon limits, rather, not summoner limit, but ooh, is this like a Mikonko warrior pile deck? Yeah, I thought it was Infernoble at first because I saw the the ones up here in the Neospace connector, but then I saw the Battle Boxer and I was like, huh? And I was like, oh, okay, I see the Mikonko stuff here as well. Rescue Ace here in the top 8, and yeah, look at that, one Rescue Ace deck, and where is it? Like one Snake Eye deck, and that's it for this particular top 8. Again, don't let, if you don't like the meta, it's one thing to not like the meta, but to say that you can't play because of what the meta is like, you're honestly just not trying hard enough. I don't know what else to say at that point. Alright, here we have a Decade Meta Weekly. 191, pretty sizable, but as always, every single Elim bracket, as well as one deck, best of 3, no side deck. We have Rescue Ace coming in first place, pretty standard pure build here. Following that up with Cash Tira, a deck that a lot of people would have said was dead, with the Unicorn going to 2. This build looks like it's actually making use of Arius the Labyrinth Butler. Oh, that's cool. To be able to turn 1, use stuff like Torrential, or Different Dimension Ground, or Metaverse into Necro Valley, like, on your opponent's turn. That's cool. That's innovative. I like it. Here we have another Rescue Ace deck. This one on a couple of cool techs, such as the Nemesis Flag, Corridor, and Therion King Regulus, to potentially go into the Thunder Dragon Colossus there. Another Rescue Ace list here. This one is a 60-card list. I'm kind of surprised it's actually not using a full Snake Eye package. Most of the 60-card Rescue Ace decks I've seen have been on, like, you know, Snake Eye Ash and Flamberge and all that stuff too, but this one looks like it is mostly just jamming a lot of Disruption and Engine on top of what it already has, so cool, alright. Got Earl here with Pearlies, pretty standard looking pure Pearly list there. And who is this? It's Adamantipator. Speaking of decks we haven't seen in a long time, and yet again, speaking of decks that a lot of people say, or would say is just awful because I doesn't see play anymore, but nope, here it is. Still making top cut even without the Block Dragon. It's cool. I love seeing it. I think Adamantipator is such a cool deck. Love to see it. We got Rika, Sun Avalon here, also making the top 8 cut, as well as yet another Teller. And I should have paid attention to see if that was the same person or not, but I've seen Lori Soar around. That name looks familiar. Here's Unchained making top 16 here. Again, pretty standard looking build, maybe except for Rivalry. Another Pearly build, this one opting to tech some Bestials as well as the Evenlies there. 3, like Evenly, especially at 3 of, I generally don't like in best of 1 decks, but again, this was a best of 3 tournament, so that makes a little more sense there. And here we go, our first Snake Eye deck in top 16. Yet again, if you're saying that Snake Eye is keeping you from doing well, it's not true. It's all, you know, and there's a lot of people who don't like to hear that answer, but I would think that's something you want to hear, because it's like, oh, this deck is winnable. Like, that's a good thing, right? But I think some people just want to, like, they want their losses to always be, like, justified by the other deck being too good and I couldn't do anything at all. Also, speaking of Tri-Brigade Lyrilusk, I guess this is a Tri-Brigade, but Lyrilusk, boom, here we are again. Seeing that deck combined with Snake Eye here. Cool stuff, cool stuff. Got another 60-card Rescue Ace list. This one does like it is playing the Snake Eye engine there. Well, it's pretty much a Snake Eye deck plus a Rescue Ace deck, kind of just like slapped together. Here is another Rescue Ace list, or sorry, Snake Eye list rather here. Got, ooh, it's Hero. Hero with the Neospace Air Hummingbird is pretty interesting. I wonder if that was to go into... Okay, it's one of the Neospatians for Cosmo Neos. I see. That actually makes sense to include this in a tournament where time might be a factor. That way you can maybe... Because this does gain you life points, so it might come up, who knows, but... Alright, let's see what we got here for the Master Cup number 41. Gonna have a lot of Snake Eyes in this one, but again, not eating the entirety of the pie... Or the majority, rather, of the pie chart. I definitely never ate the entirety of it, but... And it looks like Snake Eye did end up taking the W here, followed up by... Oh, Pearly Sprite! Sick! Yeah, there's a lot of people in the Discord, right? Not a lot, but I've seen a couple people in the Discord talk about this deck before. It's been on my radar. I actually did want to build a Sprite deck for this season. I guess we might still have some time to do it, but obviously at the Challenger Cup I didn't have as much time to experiment with other decks as I would like, but... Hell yeah, this is cool. I mean, you know me. I love Sprite. It's literally my favorite deck ever, so... yeah, good stuff. Love to see it. Orcust by Waylay Davy. Waylay Davy. Name we see a lot here in the tournament top cuts. It's Runic Orcust at that. Cool stuff. Got a Pearly list here. A pure variant, looks like. Monadium. I'm surprised it's the first Monadium list we've seen, honestly. Rocking the new Visa Samstar. Seems like 2 of seems to be what most people are settling on for the number of copies you want in that deck, which makes sense to me. Another pretty standard looking Snake Eye list here. We got some more Snake Eye action happening here. This one's an all-link build that's not playing the Cashiras. I don't know. It's like especially if you're not playing the Cashiras, I understand the appeal of an all-link build, but I think that you end up using the Synchros more often than some of the hedge link monsters. I'll say I've never understood playing Heat Soul and Snake Eye over the Synchros. This makes actually literal 0 sense to me. It's like, but I could draw 2 cards, and it's like, or you could negate 2 cards. It's like the same with Mathmech, when people are like, oh, you can Heat Soul and draw 2 instead of Singularity, and I'm like, but Singularity is guaranteed disruption. Like, wouldn't you want that over gambling by drawing? But That's not to say it's bad. Obviously, it puts up results as it has right here. I just personally don't understand the appeal of it, like, even a little bit. But, again, that's just me. Another pure and pretty standard-looking Rescue Ace list here. All right. Got one more tournament top cut to look at, the Factory Cup. This one did have... Oh, this is the overall representation. I see. I was going to say, 27% Snake Eye in top cut. I was like, huh? That's a lot. But looks like you end up being won by Snake Eye. Again, an all-link build that's not on the Kashira package. Doesn't... Again, I don't see the appeal, personally, but I guess it's not... I mean, again, it's clearly not bad because it is doing well. Oh, sick! Look at this! It's the same Kashira build with the Ariuses. Hell yeah, that's cool. I love seeing people innovate like this. I think it's so cool. This actually is funny too because I actually own a couple of Ariuses that I haven't played in lab because, well, I don't really play lab at all, but kind of makes me want to try those Ariuses in some other decks, maybe like Kashira. That's sick. I love seeing people innovate like that. Oh my god, is this a 40-card Branded Despia list? I genuinely can't tell you the last time I saw a 40-card Branded Despia list. Wow, with 3 allures, too. That's wild. That's cool. More Snake Eye action. More no synchros without the Kashiras. I don't get it. I don't get it. But clearly it is performing well, so there is that. Another Purely list. Purely, whatever you want to call it. More pure Snake Eye with no Kashiras and no synchros. And ooh. Oh, it's Unchained. I was like, is this actually a Phantom Beast build? It's Unchained. It looks like it's utilizing the Dark Beckoning Beast engine there. And we do have a Vanquish Soul here. Vanquish Soul lists, pretty standard looking, all things considered. And looks like that will, in fact, end up doing it for our tournament top cuts and indeed for this video. So thank you, everyone, as always as ever, for tuning in and hanging out and... you know, just, again, watching. If you've watched this far, I really would appreciate if you threw a little subscription down there if you haven't already. But, you know, to each their own. I think that's going to do it. Let's go ahead and move now to our outro. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. That means a lot to me. It's also a great way to support the channel, so thank you very much in that way as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways, like the very special patrons that I am thanking here, you can do so by checking out some of the links in the description. One of those goes to the Patreon, where you can join these fine folk and support the channel that way. I do post daily content over on Patreon, so you do get something for support there. And if you're interested, I also have a coaching tier option as well. Details again will be on Patreon in the link below. Also in the description linked below is my Twitch page where I stream a few times a week. You can go ahead and check that out, follow or subscribe over there if you ever want to catch me live. You'll also find my second YouTube channel if you feel like subscribing over there to watch some of the Twitch VODs as well as some additional non-Yu-Gi-Oh related content that I make over there. Again, any of those links you want to check out is all a great way of supporting. But again, even if you don't do that, just watching was also a fantastic way to support. And once again, I have to thank you so very much. But in any case, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, and I'm hoping you have a fantastic day.